if you take away the procreative possibility of sex, you're turning yourself into literally that.
Well,
it's objectifying your spouse, essentially. It's dehumanizing. And I'm surprised there's a lot of women that support it. Because they're like,
oh yeah, I don't like it when men materially objectify me.
But then they are like, oh yeah, please objectify me with freaking contraception.
And they'll contracept, you know what I mean? And they'll be the ones contracepting themselves while simultaneously saying that they don't want to be objectified. I was like, well, I hate to tell you this right now, but your boyfriend, if you're contracepting, is using you like a sex toy. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and I probably got the only man who's as hyper as me on camera at the beginning of his show.
Let's go!
Let's go! It's Franco Aurelio. He's back with us for this one. You can find him on Instagram, the Franco TV. You already know. And Franco, I think you had more to talk about after our first interview a little while back, because I know you got a lot to talk about.
So true.
Bro, I kind of wanted to talk about the subject of contraception.
Okay.
Yes,
we're diving deeper into this, huh?
I want to do the Franco deep dive into contraception. Why is contraception so evil, and why should Catholics avoid it?
I mean, it's like, honestly, it's such a no-brainer. Like I thought of it before when I first got introduced. Like when I first got introduced to it, I didn't really know much about it. I just kind of looked at the church teaching, and I was just like, I was so leaned towards being like, okay, I want to obey everything from the church because I already recognize its authority to a huge extent. I was like, I'm going to value what the church says. And when it said that, like, yeah, contraception is not allowed, I'm like, okay. So I was a little surprised at first, but then I was like, I'll take it. Okay, sounds good. Like I was at a point where I was like totally obedient, essentially, or at least really leaning towards it. But contraception is essentially like a middle finger to God. Like I don't think I could word it any better, because it's like you're essentially grabbing what sex is, from God's will, which is originally intended to be for the procreative and the unitive aspect, right? That's just as raw as it can get, as natural as it can get, without any interference at all, without any weird thing by pulling out or putting it in the wrong place. That is the most natural way that you can experience sex. It includes those two things, the possibility of procreation and the unitive aspect between man and woman. So if you're taking away, for example, the unitive aspect, you have like surrogacy, you have IVF, you have these demonic things, right? That are, you just know in your gut. It sucks that some people are like, well, what are your sources to like know that it's bad? It's like, dude, you just know it's bad.
Well, what's funny about that is that when it comes to the question of contraception, before we knew about like all of these harmful effects of contraception, I think we'll go into some of those a little bit later, like medical harmful effects of contraception. Like the Catholic Church guys, it was like way ahead of the game on this. We're actually talking like Vatican II, Pope Saint Paul VI released the document Humana Vitae in Vatican II.
Love it.
Makes it a magisterial document. This means it's binding church teaching, guys, that you're not supposed to use contraception, because this was a huge question at the time. Can men use condoms? Can women take the birth control pill? Can they do all of those other things? And they said no, and they gave all these moral reasons. And the specific moral reason was, as you were saying before, is that it takes away from the unitive and procreative aspects of sex, which is their purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just there's so many things apart from like the birth control pills that are just mess up your hormones and whatnot. Like I would say that's honestly like kind of the surface level. That's what a lot of people are talking about right now.
It's a secular explanation.
Yeah, that's a secular explanation. Like that's what like anybody can get behind. Like, okay, it's bad for your health. It messes up your hormones. You might attract a beta,
like a wimpy dude,
like a wimpy guy or something.
Wimpy boy.
Yeah, like that's really, and it's true. Like these things are true, but these are like surface level things. Like honestly, these are secondary to the priority, the most imminent harm, which is the destruction of the family, essentially, because you are. Again, okay, so we talked about removing the unitive aspect from sex, right? Now, what happens if you remove the procreative possibility from sex? What happens then? The one thing that separates humans from objects of sexual pleasure is literally the fact that we can create life. Of course, there's other things if you want to talk about, okay, well, we have hands, we have, we breathe air or whatever. Like, yeah, you can talk about that, sure, whatever. But you can essentially derive sexual pleasure from literally any sexual object.
Yeah.
Like any object that can stimulate your genitalia to, release, right? So if you take away the procreative possibility of sex, you're turning yourself into literally that.
Well,
And
yeah.
it's objectifying your spouse, essentially. It's dehumanizing. And I'm surprised there's a lot of women that support it. Because they're like, oh yeah, I don't like it when men objectify me or whatever. But then they are like, oh yeah, please objectify me with freaking contraception.
and they'll contracept, you know what I mean? And they'll be the ones contracepting themselves while simultaneously saying that they don't want to be objectified. I was like,
Real.
well, I hate to tell you this right now, but your boyfriend, if you're contracepting, is using you like a sex toy. Because
Real.
all you're doing is you're taking out the one aspect, the primary, and this is the thing that church teaching makes a distinction about. The important distinction to make between the procreative and the unitive is that the unitive is still only secondary in the sexual act. The primary purpose, guys, is procreation.
Wait, is it the secondary?
Yeah. So the primary purpose of sex is procreation. The secondary purpose is unity, because you think about it, why is sex unitive? So you can participate in that creation with God, because it's procreation. It's not actual creation. You're not the one actually creating life. God is the one willing the soul into that body at the time of creation. You are just a participant in that act, and God's creating. That is the primary purpose, and that's what your procreative act. That's what's driving it.
Yeah.
So then obviously unitive is secondary. Now it doesn't say whether it's a close second or a distant second or whatever kind of second. It's still extremely important.
Yeah, they're still both important.
Yeah,
You can't take one out. For sure.
You cannot take one out.
But yeah, that's essentially the thing, right? It really objectifies the human. It dehumanizes the human.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's disgusting. For that main reason, I'm against it totally. But also, like, it's a certain sign of pride, because you're essentially saying, like, okay, I'm going to distort this sacred act that even if you don't believe in nature, even if you don't believe in God, I'm going to distort this natural act that would have included these two aspects given its natural conclusion without any human interference.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in my human interference and distort it to my own will. It's essentially like, it is so prideful. And in a sense, it's like, I will not serve you, God. I'm going to do my own will.
It's extremely prideful. I mean, this is what drives me crazy about the whole contraception thing. It's so prideful, because what you're saying is like, I don't want you for the purpose, I don't want to have sex with you for the purpose that God wants to have sex with you. I want to have sex with you for an orgasm.
Yeah.
That's literally all you're looking for.
Yep.
And I can't think of anything more selfish than that. I'm looking for consequence-free orgasmic sex, and that's it. There's nothing else to come from it. And that's not good.
Yeah.
That's why the procreative is primary and the unitive is is secondary.
And also, once you're like, and here's the other consequences that a lot of conservatives might not want to talk about, is the fact that, like, just people in general, is the fact that once you remove the procreative aspects from sex, you open the doors to so many things. Like, okay, well, if sex is just pleasure, then why can't I just sleep with another man? Why can't I just sleep with the same sex? Why can't I just touch a little kid if it's just for pleasure, right? Oh, but consent. Okay, if that's your one line, you should look at the horrific stories of people that have consented to really disgusting stuff. These are people that are mentally ill.
Yeah.
Can they give consent? We don't allow kids to give consent because they can't give consent, right? So that's on the parents. So, they have to wait until they're mature. So couldn't you say something? We made that standard up for the little kids, right? So why don't we apply that to, like, mentally ill people, right? This is like, because I think somebody in Germany a while back, they put out an ad that they wanted to, like, eat somebody, or they wanted to eat somebody. You've heard of that, right?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and like somebody actually responded to that ad.
Oh, so because it's consensual, that just makes it okay.
Yeah, so like that person ended up killing this person and ate that person, and it was all consensual. And then it sparked a whole debate of like, okay, well, is this like moral? Like, because it's like consent and whatever. Because when you have the one thing that is like, that is you're basing your whole morality off of, which is consent, you open the doors to so many degeneracies. And then when there's no objective, like ultimate objective truth that you're like, okay, no, this person's mentally ill. This is a mental illness, and they should not be giving consent for this because they are mentally ill. Once you reject that, you're like, no, they're not mentally ill. It's whatever. It's their desires. Desire is good. It doesn't matter if they're bad desires. Like, and I agree that, like, there are desires that are good, but there are also desires that are bad.
Of course.
You don't let your little kid take in like cookies or whatever because you like a lot of cookies because that's bad for them, right?
Yeah.
You put limits on them because we recognize that there are certain things about this world that are objective truths about health, about our bodies, about morality. Now, some people don't want to bite the bullet on morality, but of course we can see this in so many trends trends throughout the world with health, with nutrition. All of this sort of stuff has objective truth to it. Morality obviously has objective truth. Anybody with a brain can at the very least tell you that. Because some people like to be like, okay, well, and I'm going on a bit of a tangent now. I just want to quickly check off this box. A lot of people like to believe that, okay, well, perspective is equivalent to reality, which is retarded. There's only one reality. And what that and doesn't matter if your perspective is different. I can have a different perspective, but that does not change reality, right? If you think that I am not a man, that doesn't make me less of not having my chromosomes, right? Yeah. I still remain to be a man, right? Just because I have a perspective is not equivalent to reality. There's one reality, several perspectives to it, obviously. Yeah. So I think, and when you get into this whole relativist nonsense, when you start getting to like, okay, well, I mean, what if it's not mental illness? What if it's fine to eat another human? What if it's fine to, put your body part in the place where you're supposed to, where human waste comes out of?
Defecate.
It's like, like, are you kidding me? Like, just if you speak on it in the proper terms, and of course, science backs this up. Like, and by science, I mean like actual science, not like lab coat corrupted science that they talks about. Well, actually, it's actually fine to have anal sex or whatever.
I want to point something out about science too, guys. Here at Red Top Report, like we understand how the government works, how it will only fund certain science studies, and those certain science studies come to certain conclusions. Yeah, that's the kind of science we don't like. That's that type of stupid lab coat science, guys. Here on Red Top Report, we just say it. Science is gay, okay? Science is gay. And we're talking about that kind of science, obviously. There's plenty of great science out there as well.
We're, because I mean, Catholicism essentially very, like, that type of science definitely very gay.
Science is gay.
But of course, the real science, which is what I'm talking about. I mean, Catholicism is literally so pro-science, it has to be, because science is the tool that we use to find the truth about reality, right?
Right.
So if our religion is claiming to be the truth about reality, then it's logical that science will prove our religion to be correct, which it has time and time again with several studies that are actually solid if you look into it, not just some correlation equals causation stuff. Like it actually proves it, right? With literally homosexuality. I know that's really hot right now. Homosexuality. You should look into why these people that practice anal sex are literally more likely to contract HIV, which can be a death sentence to some people. And you think it's love to tell them, oh no, you should keep practicing it? Like, no, that's not love. You're hating somebody if you're actively telling them, yeah, go do this practice where you put your body part in the place where they're literally supposed to dispose of human waste. Like, as if that doesn't make logical sense to you already, that it's disgusting and that it probably might give you some diseases. Like, for you to actually like really be sold on that, you're either like super peer pressured by the culture, or you're just like super addicted to sin that you just really just can't, you cannot look aside from your emotions into like the actual objective truths of the world.
And speaking of there's the real science, and then there's the science is gay science.
Yes.
So a good example of the science is gay thing is they'll be like, oh, there's all these receptors in that particular area of your body where defecation occurs.
The G-spot.
Yeah, whatever the heck they'll come up with all sorts of different degenerate names, and they'll say all these different words for it, and they say, oh, there's pleasure receptors there, so therefore that means it's a purpose for sex. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe you're just supposed to find it pleasurable to take a dump, so you take a dump when your body tells you to take a dump.
Not even
they don't even want to talk about it.
Okay,
there's differences in science here, and the science. There's the ideology behind the science, and then there's the actual science. So the science says right there that part of your body has receptors that provide pleasure to the body. That's all it says. That is what the science says.
But here's the thing. Even if it feels good in there for some weird, distorted reason, serial killers feel good when they kill people.
Of course.
Okay? Like people can derive, I mean, if you guys don't think humans are weird, get ready. There were people, I think before the trans movement, there were people that would cut off their limbs because they wanted to identify as like, oh, disabled or whatever, right? People are freaking weird. They get off of certain things, right? Sure. So one of the organs, which is their brain, literally got pleasure from doing that like weird thing that's like, what the frick are you doing?
But here's my problem with, I agree with everything you're saying. Here's my simple problem is that they'll put that sort of argument in a textbook that like because there are pleasure, because there's a pleasurable receptor, whatever thing there, that they're actually going to promote sodomy and say that this means that this is okay for sexual intercourse and this is how things are supposed to things are supposed to work naturally. And this is what I mean by the different types of science. Like you said, science is gay is there's pleasure receptors plus. On top, there's pleasure receptors, and this means this is okay. Well, as opposed to there's the real science that says there's just pleasure receptors there that could mean.
I would say it's the complete context, because if you look at the complete context, right? These people that derive sexual pleasure from like killing a human and eating them, right? Like these people, they weren't born like that. Something happened to them. They were either molested, they watched extreme pornography, something happened to make one of their organs distorted. So wouldn't it make sense that other body parts of them could possibly get distorted by certain types of surgical acts or whatever?
Sure.
And this is where we get into the G-spot, which I would love to talk about. When you get circumcised, and many won't talk about this because there's a huge industry with circumcision, and like your foreskin is actually used for a lot of what skincare products and stuff like that.
By the globalists to keep it from aging or so. I've heard all sorts of weird stuff. I don't know know much about it.
I don't know about the effects.
Conspiracy territory, guys. I can't say.
But I'm betting my money. I'm pretty sure that I've heard from reliable sources that like they literally put foreskin in like skincare products. Right?
Absolutely.
Now what the effects, if they actually work or not, I don't know about that.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. Circumcision nowadays is literally not how it was in the Old Testament. Like not how it was when Jesus was circumcised or whatever. Not how it was when the Jews back then were getting circumcised. It's really, really drastic. It's so drastic that it literally cuts off. It literally gets like I think it's been compared to by experts that it's been compared to like kissing without lips, right? It is like probably one of the most sensitive parts of the genitalia, and it's actually supposed to be your G-spot. Your G-spot's supposed to be your penis, but people, like most men nowadays, even like we're to live in a Protestant country. This country is by and large very pro circumcision. A lot of these people think that like, oh yeah, well, I mean, just because like, I mean, I guess because I can't, I don't feel that good when I'm like, I don't know, having sex with regularly. I guess maybe my G-spot might be in my butt or whatever. But it's like, actually, no, your G-spot was probably lost because actually there's a lot of nerve endings that get cut off when you get circumcised, which is a sad reality. It really is. But when these sodomite apologists say, oh no, G-spot is in the butt, it's like, no, it's not. Either you got like something went wrong with a circumcision that you did, or your brain's just been so messed up with just degeneracy that you're either porn addiction or you were molested as a child that you have a liking to that.
Yeah, I think that porn addiction does probably have a lot to do with it because you have to think about something. The amount of dopamine that is released in your brain when you experience an orgasm. I mean, it's a more addictive, and there's a study about this. It's more addictive than heroin to get that feeling, that dopamine hit in your head. Now, when somebody just keeps doing something over and over and over again, people need more and more and more and more and this, that, and the other. And that's why there's this cycle into degeneracy when you're constantly looking at, porn, and then the porn gets stronger kick every single time, just like an addictive drug. And then at some point, there's some sort of thing that gets twisted down the process. And then suddenly,
because they're looking for weirder things.
Right.
They're looking for weirder things.
They're just looking for the next weird thing that's different, something to give them a bigger hit. And then and by the way, I don't want to say that there's something inherently, more attractive about like men on men. That's disgusting.
Here's the thing.
But the thing is that they've been so perverted that eventually it gets to a point where they're not looking for something better. They're just looking for something different.
Yeah, because the thing is like and this is gonna help you guys out in your porn apologetics. Well, I mean anti-porn apologetics.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like we don't want to do porn apologetics. That's cringe. That's cringe.
None of that, guys.
Yeah, none of that. The thing with how this pornography can lead to pedophilia, can lead to maybe even gay stuff, maybe even like a lot of different degeneracies, right? And usually I know my ex-girlfriend told me about this, like a lot of she liked to watch a lot of like serial killer documentaries or whatever. Yeah. And like the trend that she actually found was that like almost all these guys had porn addictions. Literally. And I know of the whole
it's like
correlation doesn't always equal causation, of course, but there is something to be stated when these people had very weird sexual kinks. And so when when a person is addicted to pornography, right, they need a stronger kick, like we stated, right?
Yeah.
Now, that can either lead them to have to watch more of what they're watching, or find something weirder that'll give them something like new to experience. Because again, humans crave the new. We crave like whatever is new, right? So if you're constantly bombarded with like the same, right, you can definitely misuse sex. We do it all. I mean, I don't know about me, but a lot of people in our modern culture, they misuse sex insanely, either through hookup culture, through anal sex, through oral sex, through a lot of these different avenues of degeneracy that is essentially like distorting the natural.
It's Franco. It's 80% of Gen Z does not go to bed without watching pornography. This was a study that they put out. 80%. And you know, you're wondering why roughly a quarter of the entire generation is identifying as LGBT right now. Because 80% of the men don't go to bed without watching pornography. So you're talking about porn addiction. And I tell you one thing, if you don't go to bed every night without watching pornography, yeah, you have a problem. You're addicted to pornography. That just tells me 80% addicted.
And
I
want to go back to the consent thing, honestly, like the consent thing with contraception. I actually want to circle back to that. The thing, like one of the things, the effects of this for any like men and women that you guys want to talk about this like as well, is that contraception literally also kills, like it starts to kill your self-control sexually. Because the only thing stopping you from having sex if you use contraception is literally just consent. Right. And once that happens, you don't have really anything else to like keep you from using your wife or husband as much as you want as a masturbation tool, essentially. And that's what it is. It's a masturbation tool. You're literally using them as an object for masturbation. So when that happens, right, of course, that can lead. What happens when you have weak control over your most primitive desire, which is your sexual desire? Right. Don't you think it would be fair to say that maybe your appetite might get less? It might be hard to control your appetite. It might be hard to control your violence to a certain extent, right? It's like this thing, like your sexual desire is so primitive, and that's why it's so important to control this first and foremost. If you don't have this under control, guess what? You can probably expect some domestic abuse, some anger issues, a lot of things that are rooted in lack of self-control. Adultery.
Big time.
There you go.
Big time.
Adultery too.
And just so everybody watching this knows, you think that because you watch porn and that it's over a screen that you're not committing adultery? You're 100% committing adultery.
Facts.
What are you talking about? Of course you're committing adultery. You're sitting and it's actually even gayer. It's more beta. It's even more beta than that, because what you're doing when you're watching pornography is you're just sitting there watching two other people have sex. When you're married to somebody else and you're telling me that's not adultery?
Yeah, it's cheating because you're lusting.
Loser. Yeah. Loser tier.
It's cheating because you're lusting after another. It's cheating because you're lusting after another woman. Like that's like, okay, well, I'm not doing it in person, so it's different. And I actually used to say this. Like I'm guilty of this, right? So I understand if you feel this way, but you're wrong. Just how I was wrong, right? You are literally lusting after another woman. You're pleasuring yourself sexually to another woman. And funny enough, I actually read the science on this as well. Sex actually begins in the brain. That's why you can still have an orgasm in your sleep without even touching yourself, right? Mm-hmm. You can literally have an orgasm without even touching yourself. Sex begins in the brain. That's why Jesus says, whoever looks at a woman with lust,
in their heart,
they've committed adultery.
Yep.
Right? So it's quite literally adultery. Scientifically, it's proven. Logically, it's proven. Philosophically, it's proven. Religiously, I mean, religion encompasses all of that.
Yeah.
But it's literally proven in any way that you can imagine, unless you want to be cognitively dissonant about it. Which is what people if you watch porn. And it is, I mean, it's adultery, even if, I guess one could say it's even adultery, even if you're not married, because you're still, if you have a future wife, it's still adultery, I guess. But it's like, if you have a wife and you're watching porn, you are cheating. If you have a girlfriend and you're watching porn, you are cheating. It is cheating. It's adultery.
I want to take this even a step further. Imagine you are a 13-year-old boy and you're exposed to pornography. To all you porn producers out there, to all you porn stars out there, to all you people that are involved in this whole thing, guess what? You are sexually abusing a child. Do you think that just because there is a screen in between that child learning to sexually pleasure himself to you, or you the porn star, just because there's a screen in between you, that somehow that damage isn't still happening?
Yeah, facts.
You're insane.
Facts.
So to say that there isn't an if 80% of these young adults going back to actual high school students and children that are watching this happen, so 80% of our children were sexually abused.
Real.
And you wonder why there's so much sexual perversion all throughout America right now. Duh.
Yeah, real. No, I mean, like, and apart from like the sexual perversion as well, like it is part of sexual perversion, but like apart from the degeneracies into pedophilia, into these weird kinks, I like to mention pedophilia because like it's such a disgusting thing and it's some people are starting to accept it nowadays, right? But I want to touch on this issue. The thing with like one of the things that breaks my heart about pornography is the fact that like these men are getting addicted at like 11 years old. Or something. Like the average age I think is like 9 or 11 years old.
It's actually 11 to 12.
11 to 12
we just looked it up, but that's
so
for
it's like,
both sexes. It's lower for men.
And here's the sad part is that like apart from all the other stuff that I can mention about it, one of the things that also breaks my heart about it is the fact that if a little boy is watching porn since like 11 years old and he goes years, decades to the point where he's like, to the point where he finally gets red pilled and stops watching porn or whatever, right? And it's like, and he turns his life to Christ. He doesn't want to watch pornography anymore, right? He's still going to have that addiction that's going to be eating away from him. He has to cure that addiction. It's going to take some time. Yep. If you think that you just screwed up all the stuff in your brain for this amount of years, if you think it's going to go away this quickly, unless like some miracle happens, like that is like you're dreaming. And that's honestly one of the worst things about it is because like these men, they're repenting of it, and they want to quit, but it's hard for them because they've been conditioned through years, almost maybe even decades in some cases, and they have women that they want to serve. They might even have a wife, and they want to get rid of that because they don't want to be cheating on them.
Exactly.
But the addiction that was so ingrained since 11 years old. You know how hard it is to get rid of not only just thoughts, but maybe even addictions since you're a kid.
That's gotta be
insane.
It's just something. It's something that's extremely awful. It's something that's diabolical, actually.
Yeah.
And this was actually something back at our men's conference that we had a while back. The Jesse Romero brought up a very important point that parents, that do have children right now. I mean, we live in a culture right now where there's people, where there's half naked women on billboards. There's really no escaping the lustfulness that goes on in the world because you're kind of almost forced into it in the degenerate culture that we're in today. I mean, women go outside half naked sometimes. I mean, it's completely insane in this country right now. Pray over your children, and bless them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. You can do that. You can put your hand on there. You're the patriarch of your household. If you're a man, if you're the husband, you have authority over that. You can protect them from the evil spirits. And this is medieval Catholicism, guys. I mean, this is straight from
medieval grind set.
Straight from the GOAT, Father Chad Ripperger, the exorcist. He'll tell you this stuff about medieval Catholicism. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit because, I think this all started somewhere. This all had a really abrupt starting point. And it really seemed to me that was at first through the Protestant Reformation, which, hurt the church, but then the Enlightenment, which, liberalism came into the political landscape. And I'm sure I know you have some stuff to say about that. So
how much time do we have? How much time do we have?
We got about 5 minutes. You can talk about it.
No, it's not enough time.
You can do it.
It's not enough time.
You can do it.
Okay. To sum this up real quick. Juan Donoso Cortez said something to the extent of that, like, Catholicism is the life of all intelligence. Anything that departs from it, one iota, is deception, error, and heresy. Literally, Protestantism kickstarted liberalism, and in the sense of literally saying like, no, like I will not. It's such a it's such a horrible deception because it's like you're grabbing Christ, like literally our Savior, and you're saying, no, this is what he said. And the devil, sure, the devil can the devil might tempt Muslims a different way. They might tempt atheists a different way, right? So how does he tempt the good Christian? He tempts them through deception. No. Christ didn't actually say this. Christ said this. He said it. Oh, you sure he didn't say he represents my body? You sure he didn't say, it's all symbolical? It's trying to lead you away.
It's Gnosticism. It's a heresy. It's Gnosticism. Yeah. There's this hidden knowledge that we're just finding out about all the way right now in the year 1500. Yeah. And wow, this is insane. Meanwhile, we have the Catholic Church. They've just they debated it for 2,000.
It's arrogance. It's arrogance. It really is arrogance. I mean, some Protestants, I know not all Protestants are arrogant, but Protestantism is arrogance. Yes. It's literally pride. It's liberal. It's also liberalism. Even if you find a Protestant that's like, well, I'm against transgenderism and I'm against gay marriage and whatever. It's like, if that's your definition of liberalism, if that's all it is, you have a very infantile understanding of what liberalism is. You have to. I would recommend reading "Liberalism is a Sin" by Father Felix Sarda. I'm always recommending that book. I love that book. It's such a good book. Because it attacks specifically what liberalism is and how Protestantism is so intertwined with it. It's very cohesive.
I'm gonna try to see if we have that in our bookstore, and if we don't, we should try to get that in our bookstore. I think
every well-meaning Catholic, every well-meaning Christian in general, I mean, that's what a Catholic is, I suppose. It should be reading that book, because even a Protestant that's like trying to be like for the object. If you're a Protestant, you're trying to find the objective truth, and you're trying to find what God really wants of us, and the objective truth of our Christian faith. Then I do recommend that book. I think you will get a lot out of it if you are sincere in heart. And I know, and it might be a little hard on Protestantism, but hey, truth is truth. We never said it might be easy to get. And
the best truths are always the hardest ones for us to accept. And that's the best thing about it. And it just sum up the ideas on the Enlightenment. I mean, guys, just think about it this way: how you can see how selfish our society has become. You can see how everybody is always just looking inwardly on how to make their lives better, only care about themselves. There's an entire exodus of self-sacrifice from our culture over the past 200 years. And I want to point out, it's because that Enlightenment ideas are the ones that inspired the idea of individualism. It took away the Catholic idea that the family was the building block of civilization and shoved everything onto the individual's back. It is a unit. You're supposed to be working together. And you're supposed to be part of the family of the church.
Yes. Of the church. And that's where Protestantism comes in, because it exalts the individual authority of, well, I mean, I think God's telling me what this is, instead of like what the magisterium is feeling like is knowing that God is telling them. Essentially, it's everybody's their own pope. They're exalting their own authority. It's essentially, again, it's liberalism, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to go into
what is liberalism? It's pride.
Yeah. And if you want to look into and then be like, well, what about Anglicanism? What about Orthodoxy? We can get into that another time, but which would be a good conversation.
Thank you.
We got to wrap this up.
Yeah, no, dude. Thank you so much for coming on, Franco. I have a feeling that this is not going to be the last time I see you at the Church Militant Studios.
Not at all.
Exactly. Yes.
We'll be back.
We will be back.
Let's go.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching us. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. Follow us on that weird thing that Mark Zuckerberg has that nobody goes on anymore, Threads. And also follow us on X, that thing that was Twitter. And also subscribe to the channel. You got to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notifications bell so you always know when we are dropping new content. Oh, yeah, guys. And there's one more thing you need to do for us. You need to give us your money.
We want to take out a hefty loan.
And you can give us your money by going to buymeacoffee.com. That is buymeacoffee.com. The link is in the description. Be sure to click on that. You can do a single donation, or you can do a monthly Joe for Joe donation for only $5 a month. And with that said, guys, that's all we got for this episode. God bless.
Give him money. Cut out that last "let's go" for me.